we have started a new program called Sighted at Bernheim, which is where Bernheim actually goes out and we commission a piece. We seek support from the community to be able to do this, and then we identify an artist that has a particular interest in nature-based art, and then we invite them to come and do something at Bernheim. Partick Dougherty is our first Sighted at Bernheim artist, and he arrived here on April 6th, and he worked until about April 26th, and in that period of time worked with lots of volunteers and staff, and took 5 dump truck loads full of cut willow and turned them into a massive site-based installation of art. It's really incredible.
Well, I guess I had to figure out what birds and beavers already knew, and that these sticks have an infuriating tendency to tangle. So that's the simplest method of joining, and it allows the piece to be built without any interference from kind of contemporary ties or something like a string and wire and so forth. Right, I usually think of the design when I'm there, when I can fully appreciate the place. Usually I only visit for a few minutes, and so when I've come back, then I'm going to be in that place. So I try to take the full measure of that space and try to understand what it is and how people use it, and then try to build a piece that somehow fits and has a kind of interplay with the surrounding woods, or if it's in a building, the building that's in, and you know, try to build something that people feel like, oh, might have been a natural occurrence, that it could have improbably been blown in, or you know, spun off, or somehow came down the river and lodged there, so that you know, it looks human made, you know it is, but you know, there's a kind of wild freedom about it that makes you feel like that is somehow connected with the momentum of the natural world. I lay the piece out with extension cords or something, and I kick it around. I kick it around, the lines around, until I feel like that there's adequate space to move through it and in it. You know, I want the doorways to be kind of big and luxurious, or small and kind of squeezing, but you know, the different experiences of trying to go in and out. Some kids can use, some adults can use. If you don't like it, go back a little bit and take another doorway. So then I set my scaffolding up around the piece and use it as kind of an exoskeleton. And as you see, some of this tunnel leans, and sometimes it bends one way or another. It fattens and narrows, and all of that that attitude, that gesture, is put in by roping it to the scaffolding around it, and then forcing the shape that I like. Then I'll go and I'll put a kind of a layer of kind of a structural layer of sticks on it, in which we go all different directions. And then once I get something like building a canvas, then I'm able to draw on it. So then I start aestheticizing it and putting lines where I think they look really good. So that's kind of the second thing. And then finally, we're about to enter the third phase, which is the cosmetic phase of trying to not just make it look good, but make it safe, make it look smooth, and then take little sticks that don't count that much and erase things I don't like.
Most of the reaction to date has been during the installation phase. And so that type of interaction is unique in that many of the people that reacted with the piece were actually helping to build it. And so now they have a connection with the piece because they were working with the artist. But we've also I've had my own child out here who, before it was finished, took her into the piece, and you could just see her eyes light up, and she equated it to a fairy house because it's made out of natural objects. She's built those at home, so she just thought all of a sudden her little bitty fairy houses had become human scale or bigger, and she just had a grand time with it. The reactions have been all across the board. Always wonder, always surprise, always delight, always questioning how in the world did that happen, those kinds of things.
The general public, as they come by, if they're infatuated enough, start feeling, you know, like, oh, they would like to look at it. If they bring their families back, you know, they've finally kind of entered the illusion that I hope to cast a spell of, you know, something interesting to look at and fun to explore. And so there's a kind of ownership in returning. But then if you see your neighbors working on it, then there's a way that endears it to you as well, and you feel like, in fact, you do. And then there's the drama of building, which if you come numerous times while we're working on it, and you see how the thing is built, then all of a sudden you're kind of woven into the process itself.
I mean, really, you've done an enormous amount of work. You've done a lot of fill.
Snake Hollow is the title that he gave the piece, and he wanted a title that children could maybe say and connect with. One of the philosophies that's imbued in his art is this kind of playfulness in childhood and secret spaces of childhood, and so it has roughly it takes on the form of two kind of interwoven snakes, and when you visit the piece you don't necessarily get an immediate sense of that, but when you kind of travel around within the piece, you can either be on the interior of one of those snakes or both of them, and then between those two snakes. So it's a bit of a labyrinth or a maze or a tangle, a weaving of natural objects, and that you get to be a part of.
I'm a sculptor, so I like making things, and I like seeing my ideas get worked out in a public way. So, you know, that's a pleasure in itself. I'm really a working person, and I like working hard, and I've kind of understood the freedom that comes from throwing yourself into something so fully. You know, some people feel like work is just a way of providing for their family, but for me, there's a vitality in it. There's great depth in throwing yourself into a project, you know, and I have to say that my work is intensely used. It's intensely viewed even during its installation, and lots of people are talking to me, and then I have the conviviality of working with the volunteers, and so there's not such a loss. My job is to make things, and other folks, the public's job is to evaluate and enjoy, and I can leave these works in good hands.